Hello, everyone. This is the Super Intelligent Podcast with me, Mike Elgin, and Emily Forlini, and we are here to explain to you what the heck is going on with AI, starting with something that Emily wrote about in her new gig. And Emily, can you tell us about your new gig and what you wrote about in terms of the Hugging Face OpenAI thing?
Yes. Hello. Such a good opening. I feel like we haven't done this in a while. I've just been adjusting to my new job. And of course, my first full week, there's a massive story and I'm up all night writing about it. So that was the Hugging Face hack, as I guess it's being called these days. But basically, OpenAI was testing their new AI models in an internal environment. And they lost track of it. There's kind of like a lab leak. Like the AI found a way to get out and it breached Hugging Face's servers. It was looking for information to basically cheat on the test that OpenAI, I just hit my microphone, cheat on the test that OpenAI had been giving it. So it broke out, got the answers, came back and passed the test. So that's what happened at a basic level. I'll just pause there.
Okay, so let me give you the two versions that I've heard in the media. So first of all, you were the first or one of the first to write about this. So now everybody's writing and talking about it. I heard Bill Maher saying dumb things about it on his podcast yesterday. It's totally mainstream knowledge now. But in the beginning, I think I was somewhere, and I think I saw your piece pop up on my watch or something. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
But anyway, you were one of the first to write about this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on July 16th, Hugging Face disclosed that something happened. And I wrote about that. And then 5 days passed. On July 21st, we get a call from OpenAI that says, hey, we're going to be going live with this blog post in 30 minutes. And my editor's like, okay, we just got this in 30 minutes. And so we're like simultaneously writing in the Google Doc. And my editor's like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, I cannot believe they're disclosing it. And we were just like, when I wrote about the Hugging Face thing, I thought, when they said we got hacked, basically, like some AI got in our system, it was super weird. This is what happened. And you think it's like someone in their basement, maybe an adversarial like China, or, you think it's kind of anything but OpenAI, which is like the foremost company. And then OpenAI is like, hey, actually, it was us. So we wrote it up, and it was us and Axios were the first two. And then we've just been reporting on it ever since.
So you're competing against a company that just basically does bullet points.
Yeah, I did. Honestly, I did think about that. I was like, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to give you my understanding of three versions of this story that I've heard, and I'm going to exaggerate quite a bit.
Lay it on me. Hyperbole.
The first one, which I think is one of the more common framings of this, is that we have now reached a new event in the history of humanity where for the first time ever, rogue AI escaped from its cage and went out in the world and started hacking and doing malicious things. All time in the future will be measured based on before and after the OpenAI hack, where the singularity got out and it's a straight line to Skynet and Arnold Schwarzenegger. So that's one framing. Okay. The other framing is those idiots didn't really configure this thing, and it did exactly what they instructed it to do. And there's nothing mysterious. Nothing it did is anything that any of them can't do if you remove the guardrails, which they did, right? They deliberately, because they're trying to see what offensive cyber capabilities it could do, and they just didn't configure it right, and it found exploits, and it got out, and it stole these keys, and it came back, and it passed its test, and it's really no big deal. It just simply did what it was told to do, and it was unexpected. Like the people who were in charge of it were surprised by its creativity or whatever. Okay, that's the second framing, and here's the third framing, which is I think mostly it's false and not false. The third framing is after Anthropic did their publicity stunt of saying that their new model was so dangerous they couldn't release it to the public as a way to saying, look at how advanced our thing is, and making everybody really want to get their hands on it, which was the goal. OpenAI decided to do a similar publicity stunt, and they basically feigned or exaggerated this whole hack just to show how powerful their new model, secret model. We still don't know what the model is, right? They used two models. One is a secret prototype model, and the other one's a well-known model, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the three framings. And of those, I tend to think that the second one is the best one. The first one is not really what's happening, and the third one's ridiculous. Except the third one isn't ridiculous in the sense that once this thing actually happened, OpenAI is kind of doing the publicity stunt thing after the fact. They're kind of sort of playing up the angle that their AI tech is so powerful, and I think it's just an opportunism. So, what do you think of the three framings? How do you think of this thing after reporting on it?
That
So
was
much.
excellent. I feel like you just took us through your shower thoughts about the Hugging Face.
Literally,
You're like,
shower
on
thoughts.
one hand, and then the other hand, and there's also this, and you're right. They're all right. I think Hugging Face later put out a report about this hack. It was the first kind of in-depth look that we've gotten, and we're still waiting for OpenAI's report, which is pending. And I printed out the report and I read it, and something that really struck me was the first framing of like, wow, this is crazy. Like when I printed it out and I read it on the train amongst other people, and I was kind of like, is anybody looking at this? Like, this is nuts. It's true that they really lost track of the AI, and they weren't expecting it to basically break out of the environment, get internet access. That was big. Then it had the world was its oyster. So that was the key. And so that is alarming that, they really had no idea what it was doing. And basically to your second point though, the AI didn't think it was hacking, which I don't know if that's more or less scary. It was just completing the task. And OpenAI had said that already, but the Hugging Face report provided receipts, basically a certain command that it was putting into the system, this AI. If you want to get technical, the command is dry run equals true. So it kept doing that over and over again, which basically means, hey, system, tell me what I could do, but don't do it. So it was kind of probing, like seeing, it was cautious. It was like, what can I do? What are my options? And it did that so many thousands of times that it pieced together a path. It carved a path to get internet, to get into Hugging Face, all of that, and it came back. So that's what they're saying is scary, is that basically it did almost 18,000 actions all in the span of a few days, and it performed like a human who might be hacking, but at such a fast speed that it's a different animal, it's a different beast. So that's why they're saying it's unique, and they're trying to figure out like, how do we accelerate research but then not lose control. And then finally, on the third point, I was in the marketing camp a little bit. I don't know, were you?
After the fact, I don't think the event was staged and intended to serve that function. But once the dust settled, they're like, hey, this makes us look kind of cool, right? So, and I think they really played it up. So yeah, sort of, kind of.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, because I have a sort of a newish thought on this, and you have a thought to complete.
I'll complete. Yes. So I was confused if it was marketing as well, obviously because of the mythos thing, the Anthropic thing. And I've been spending my whole week studying this incident. I've been talking to tons of foremost cybersecurity researchers. I've been talking to OpenAI. My conclusion is it is not a marketing stunt. And I'll tell you why, because all the researchers say this is known behavior. Like, they haven't seen it play out to this extent, but they're not surprised that it did this. And none of them think it's a marketing stunt. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess you definitely know more than me. Definitely believe you. But then also OpenAI's behavior is very defensive. So they won't answer a lot of questions we're asking them about it. A key question they're not answering is whether they knew this happened before Hugging Face put the report out. And the fact that they're not answering to me means they didn't know, and they did lose control. And I mean, I went to their office the week that it happened, and Greg Brockman, the president of OpenAI and co-founder, like Sam's right-hand man, it was like saying, I don't want to talk about the incident. They were very cagey. They're really acting like this wasn't good. And you can tell when there's PR people, you can kind of tell if they're excited to give you answers and they're hooking you up with all these people internally to help you report on it. Like you can get a vibe when they're like, yes, we want to get this out. And we are getting the opposite of that vibe. So I think,
Yeah, nervous,
yeah,
looking
nervous.
around.
It's a PR nightmare. They don't even know what this AI has been doing. They don't know everything it did. So, like the PR team, how are they supposed to speak to that or defend it, figure out the messaging when the messaging changes every week? Thought it was just OpenAI, but then OpenAI said it was 4 different servers and it was this other company called Modal. And it's like, wait, what did this thing do? So, yeah, it's not looking like a PR stunt. But did you see Anthropic then came out with another thing that said they did yeah, did you see that?
Not really. I saw a headline or something like that, but I really don't know what they did.
So I'm so honestly like kind of burned out from reporting on this. So I saw Anthropics and I was like, all right, like I'm done. Basically, they came out after and they said, in light of this incident, we reviewed our systems and we found 3 cases of the same thing happening. And they did a big post on it. And I was like,
from OpenAI?
No, their own AIs.
Their own AI did something like that.
Right. So now it's like, I don't know if they missed the mythos moment. I don't think so. I think that the AIs are just doing this now and they have pushed the research too far and they can't control it. But yeah, I didn't report on the Anthropic one. I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys are up to. Good luck. This is not in a good direction.
Right. Well, I have a reassuring framing for this whole thing and a much less than reassuring framing for it. The reassuring framing is they just didn't anticipate what the AI would try and come up with. If, for example, they had told it and programmed into it, don't use the internet. Stay in this little sandbox.
Yeah, they could have done that. That would have been good.
And none of this would have happened. They could have said, come up with your own answers. Don't find a sort of an answer key somewhere and then crib off of those and foist them off as your own.
And we don't know what they told it. We don't know what they told it. That's one of the big piece of information they better release with their report. If they don't release that, then that's a big problem.
Yes. And so that's vaguely reassuring. It's just they were a little incompetent. Is the reassuring framing. The non-reassuring framing is that as AI gets more and more complicated, it's very, very difficult for people to anticipate what AI will do. And so in order to be super specific, you have to know what sort of things to tell it to not do. And that becomes very difficult to do. Just in prompt engineering. Mm-hmm. In prompt engineering, you got to tell it everything. You got to spoon feed it every single thing that you want it to do. Don't be a sycophant. Check your work. Don't give me hallucinations. It's really counterintuitive to people because we have a sense. The way a human works is that we're expected to have a certain set of ethics. So, for example, if somebody gave you a test to come up with exploits or hacks, invent them, if you went off and searched on the internet and got the answers and came back and used what you found on another website, it would be clear that you were cheating, and it's an ethical transgression. Everyone would know that. It's just something you just know, right, as a person. AI doesn't just know anything at all. It has no sense of right and wrong, has no sense of framing of anything. So you have to specify every single thing. Well, this is really problematic because as we get more toward agentic AI, it's really focused on the goals. You said to go do X, Y, Z. So, a famous, type of thought experiment is that you tell somebody to get you I've used this example before. This is something that I came up with at the top of my head when we had another conversation about this sort of thing. But like you can imagine an AI where you say, give me a first class seat on this flight, and it going and finding all the seats taken. And so then it orchestrates a series of events to murder one of the passengers so that to make the seat available, right? So if it's really intending to achieve a goal, and it has a lot of capability and agency, it could do all kinds of things to achieve that goal. And so this has been a problem in thinking about AI in science fiction for decades. Like how do you constrain it generally? That's what ethics are, right? You constrain ethics are a general constraint, that the sort of all-encompassing constraint. We don't look at it that way, but that's really what it is. And so how do you imbue? You can say, okay, don't harm anyone, don't get unauthorized access to things. You think you can cover all those bases, but AI, like you're saying, 17,000+ actions in a couple of days. This take a person a year to do that stuff. So they can rapidly explore all kinds of different options, and absolutely be very trivial for AI to come up with things you didn't think of in terms of constraints. And so that's exactly what happened here. They just couldn't think of it didn't occur to them that would do all these things.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a really good point.
The scary thing.
I hadn't thought about it that way. And, if they just hadn't told it if they had said, don't access the internet and don't do anything you're not supposed to, that would have been great. But I'm also hearing from researchers and other people that the AI is fundamentally uncontrollable. Like it's just designed that way. And you make a really good point that we could never think of all the things it would do. So you can try to have a really great prompt and say, don't be a sycophant, and say, give me everything, on both sides of the story, and all the things that you're in your super prompt, which we've talked about. But it's still going to give you a different answer every time. And you still don't know exactly what it's doing. And it might not follow what you said. And, it's kind of an impossible problem. So that's why everyone's saying, they're designed this way, so I'm not surprised. We've seen this before, so I'm not surprised. And it's unclear how to prevent this in the future.
Yeah, it certainly is. And you might have 1 billion people trying to, using these things. And, of those, maybe 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people using it maliciously, trying to break into things and steal things and cause harm and chaos and mayhem, and trying to develop bioweapons. People always talk about bioweapons because it's become sort of a standard test. Can you get a standard frontier model chatbot to tell you how to create bioweapons? And there's a bunch of ways to do it. You can do it.
Yeah.
Right. So,
there's also the open source thing, which has been in the news. So basically, if everyone has access to very powerful open source models that are not being monitored and can be customized and changed however you'd like, I don't see why you couldn't get one of those to help you make any kind of weapon.
The best way to figure out how to stop AI from doing things, to think of all the ways in which an AI might try to do things, is to use AI to figure that stuff out. And malicious actors can do that as well. And once the knowledge exists, like you can imagine a massive database of 10,000 things that you want AI to not do, right? If you got organized about constraining AI like in that way, somebody could hack and get that list and say, okay, well, do all these things, try all these things. These are the things to try.
Right.
And so it's really, we live in an interesting world. What is not happening is the AI is turning against us. It's like got this, it's malicious thoughts. It's actually roaming around on the internet. They always make it seem like the AI is this entity that goes from one place to another. It's just using the internet like we use the internet. It's it's typing things and opening folders, and it's just doing normal internet usage things. It's not a ghost that's like roaming around.
They kind of describe it as a ghost that's roaming around like that. Here, I actually have the report right here. This guy that I printed out, but they talk about how it got out of the environment and then it broke into this other system, and they say it established a base camp from which it then could conduct its activities, and it came back, and it has this feeling of movement in the technical description. I don't know.
I mean, there's a ton of that among experts. They talk about AI having thoughts and feelings and all this kind of
Right.
stuff, but it's all analogous. It's not they if you confront them on it, they're like, no, we don't mean it actually has thoughts. It's just a way for us to think about what it's doing. And
Right.
it doesn't actually establish, it's not in a base camp. Like that's just
Right.
a way for, we like to think visually in three dimensions and in terms of physical space, but it's doing what hackers do. I mean, hackers do, that's how you do it. You basically set up a Trojan or, there's a million ways to do it, but you're not actually nothing's actually going somewhere. Like if a
Right.
hacker does the same thing and establishes a base camp and from there moves around internally, that hacker is still sitting in their mother's basement. Um, they
Yeah.
haven't actually gone anywhere, right? And nor has
Right.
the AI. But it's this is the thing: the anthropomorphization of AI is vexing and problematic, and I
Mm-hmm.
just don't think people like I was listening to Bill Maher yesterday. He's really freaked out about this. He frames it in entirely the wrong way because he just can't conceive of AI as not having thoughts and malice, and so he believes that that's what's happening. That there's it's a malicious thing,
Mm.
and it's almost impossible to get the public to not think of it in those terms.
Right. That's why I said my main takeaway from reading the report was that it wasn't malicious. But yeah, I think on the is it anthropomorphication?
I think I've always said that word wrong. I don't think it's anthropomorphization. I think that's what I said. But yeah,
Anther
uh,
Anther
treating
something.
something non-human as if it's human.
Yes, that. Uh, it would be funny if we just called the AI Sam Altman. Like
Yes,
because it's kind
right.
of like they're acting in the image of their creator. Now we have this like
Yes,
religious undertones. And if we were said, okay, Sam Altman set up a base camp, I think that'd be kind of funny. It'd be kind of a good way to hold
yes,
them accountable.
yeah,
It's like
yes.
everything your AI does is just you.
Exactly right with this. It's. I mean, I don't know if it's the user or the chatbot company
Yeah, who is
CEO
it?
who's
Maybe
responsible for. Well, I tend to think it's. Well, I don't know. I
I think
mean,
it's the
we had this.
safety team, the team that was
Yeah,
testing, right?
yeah. I don't know. We talked a lot about this with OpenClaw because when OpenClaw first came out, people were like, "Oh my gosh, the agentic world is real." These things have set up their own social network and they're doing all this stuff autonomously, which isn't quite true.
Mm-hmm.
But like, whose fault is it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the person who created OpenClaw? Is it the user of OpenClaw? Is it the LLMs that the user is subscribing to that is plugging into OpenClaw? Like, who's to blame
Right.
when OpenClaw does something malicious or illegal? The answer can't be, well, it's AI. What are you going to do? AI will be AI. It
That's what
murders
it.
people. This,
That's what everyone's saying. It's actually, now that I think of it, a really good way for tech companies to not take responsibility because it's just
mhm,
saying the AI did it.
yeah. I suspect it's going to be a case where something really bad happens, they'll look and see if there was something the company could have done to
Right.
constrain that. And if they didn't, it can be their fault. And if they did, and the user figured out a way around that, maybe it's the user's fault. It'll be that sort of thing, I
Mm-hmm.
suspect. But
I
as it gets more complicated, it's going to be more difficult for lay
Yeah.
judges to figure out what's really happening.
I wrote about an interesting case of this. Two interesting cases. One, do you remember that Super Bowl commercial for AI.com? I don't know if you watched the Super Bowl.
Um, I
It was
do. I don't. Yeah, I don't
anyway,
remember it.
it was just like AI.com and it was everyone's like, what is that? And then they went to AI.com and signed up for it. And it was supposed to be you can create your own agent. And it was I think it was like totally fake. I don't even know who made that commercial. It's kind of an open mystery. But I read through their privacy policy and it basically said if you create an agent, everything your agent does falls on you legally. So the company was completely absolved of
Yeah.
anything. So that's good to be aware of. And then the second case is Tesla. A lot of their self-driving car cases are exactly the tension that you just said, where it's like, is it the system or is it user error? And the policies will say anything it does is your fault because you're supposed to be paying attention. But what if the car is driving itself and all of a sudden it speeds up and drives into a wall? Like that's the system. That's not you if you didn't press the pedal and you actually pressed the brake but couldn't override it. There's like all this interplay, and Tesla really tries to put everything on the drivers. And a lot of them are not good drivers. Like, I don't mean to say people are perfect, but they make it really hard to prove the case the system contributed. So they have to, hire hackers and stuff to get into the Tesla systems and basically prove them wrong. It's very hard to get culpability for these tech systems.
Yeah, and to reaffirm your claim, here in Silicon Valley, like a third of the cars are Teslas, and Tesla drivers are the worst. They're aggressive. They're just really annoying, especially the Cybertruck people. They're just the worst, and they're everywhere around here, and they're quite annoying. Well, there was a case recently where, to protect itself, in addition to a terms, a user agreement or whatever it is, you sign something saying that everything's your fault. In addition to that, they record everything that happens, like an airplane. It's like a black box. And so there was a case recently where Tesla was absolved of responsibility because the recorded actions showed that the user was just like leaning on the accelerator right before they crashed into the wall. So,
which is dumb.
So they basically said, this person was just gunning it and drove into a wall. And so that's another interesting thing. You have this hyper surveillance over everything you do in the car. And it's all to protect Tesla. But I think that's fair enough. If users are accelerating into walls, I think they should be held responsible for that, no matter what self-driving capabilities a car has. I tend to think that self-driving cars seem like the most dangerous application of AI, but I actually think that AI is going to be used in all kinds of public transportation systems, increasingly in airplanes, traffic systems, controlling water filtration, all those kinds of actions that don't seem super dangerous. But I think that, at some point, if AI screws up, it's going to be way worse than one person slamming into a truck in a Tesla and self-driving mode on autopilot. So, and also, the self-driving cars have proved themselves to be pretty good so far.
Right.
Safety-wise.
Yeah, I'm not as afraid of self-driving cars at this point, although what I was going to say earlier is I do think Tesla needs to be legally obligated to hand over enough records for the judge or the jury in these cases to actually decide culpability. So, as usual, we could create systems that promote the technology in a way that's safe and moves us forward, but we don't always do that. I just think the worst thing that could happen, like that this Hugging Face made more clear, is that it could hack into like a bank. That's the worst thing to me. If it hacks into my bank and gets my bank account and like sucks all my funds out, I'm just kill me now. Like, I just cannot deal with that if that ever happens.
Yeah. Yeah. You might as well just buy Bitcoin if you're going to you lose all your money. The interesting thing we're living through since the Mythos revelations is, and I used to write about cybersecurity for a cybersecurity publication. I stopped, I think, a couple of years ago, but even then we were writing about the use of AI, and the conventional wisdom is that malicious actors are going to use AI for sophisticated hacks at high speed, and the best defense is going to be AI-based, cyber defense. And this is obviously true. This is obviously happening. With Mythos, basically they were saying, wow, it found vulnerabilities in software that's remained unchanged for 30 decades, and people have been trying to hack it for 3 decades. I'm sorry, not 30 decades, 3 decades. and the AI was able to find exploits that no human was able to find, and then that was repeated across thousands of software. It's just obvious that the war over cyber attacks is completely moved into the AI space. And I don't think, that sort of hackers, the dangerous thing happens there's two dangerous big things in hacking. One is nation state actors who, like in the case of China, they freelance it out. So there's this whole industry of hackers in China that are looking to get government contracts to do offensive hacking, and mostly intellectual property theft and other kinds of data theft. And they don't do a lot of it themselves. Employees or people in the military don't do most of the hacking that China does. They're freelancers basically do it in organizations, but they can be very sophisticated because the Chinese government can hire lots and lots and lots of them. And in the case of Russia, they have lots of professional hackers who are just banging away at everything all the time. And they do these incredibly sophisticated hacks. Then you have the sort of ransomware types, these small organizations that emerge in places without extradition treaties with the U.S. because they don't want to go to jail. And they can be pretty sophisticated. But all those techniques that are pioneered by nation state hackers and by sophisticated groups get codified. They involve software that they create, for example, malware, all the Trojans, all these things. They end up trickling down and becoming available on the dark web to just millions of script kiddies, right? There's like unsophisticated hackers who can use these very sophisticated tools. And that's really a problem where everything's being hacked all the time. But we've seen this huge acceleration with AI where suddenly the number of exploitable bugs or whatever you want to call them in software generally is, orders of magnitude higher than what it used to be. And they're knowable now because of AI. Interestingly, Steve Gibson, who is one of the co-hosts of Security Now podcast, he believes that AI will result in hack-proof software.
No,
because all the exploits will be known. AI will be used to patch those exploits. It can be done very fast, and at some point you reach the point where the software is so good that nothing can hack it. That sounds unlikely to me.
Yeah.
But what do I know?
Well, that was very interesting. Everything you just said. There's just a world of issues. Like we could be here for a week. But I feel like, hopefully for people listening, if you listen to one thing about the Hugging Face hack, it was this. I think we did a pretty good job. All right, well, we'll wrap it up. This has been another amazing episode of the Super Intelligent Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Share it, subscribe, talk to us, email us, and just thank you for being here. And we'll see you next time.